"Don't take me." She played dead when she saw the human on her mother's orders. The forest was alive with colors that no human had ever seen. Trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves glowing faintly with shades of silver and blue. Strange flowers opened and closed with the wind, releasing scents that tickled the senses. Liara, a young girl of her alien race, moved carefully through the underbrush. Her silver-blue skin shimmered slightly in the dim light, helping her blend with the forest around her. She carried a small scout drone, its lights flickering softly as it hovered beside her. Today, she had wandered farther than usual, drawn by curiosity, yet she knew she had to be careful. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Liara, never trust outsiders. Survival comes first. Always hide if you see a human. They are clever, and they will take what they want. Do not let them see you." Liara had repeated the words so many times that she could almost hear them in the rustle of every leaf. She had obeyed her mother before, but today something tugged at her mind, a desire to see what lay beyond the familiar borders of their village. She stepped softly over a twisted root and paused, listening. A faint sound caught her attention, a soft, rhythmic crunch. Liara's heart skipped a beat. She crouched behind a glowing bush, peering through its silver leaves. And then she saw them, footprints unmistakably human. Large and round, pressed into the soft soil as if someone had walked carefully but with purpose. Her eyes widened. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Their arrival was always dangerous. Liara's instincts screamed at her to run, to hide, to obey her mother's warning. She dropped to the ground, her body flattening against the moss. Her breathing slowed as she tried to make herself as small and invisible as possible. The human had not seen her yet. He was tall, wearing a dark suit that seemed both light and protective. His hair was brown, eyes curious, scanning the surroundings constantly. He carried strange tools and devices, and a small hovering light orb followed him as he moved. She watched him pause by a cluster of flowers, kneeling down to examine them. His hands were careful, gentle, almost reverent. Liara's curiosity mixed with fear. Humans could be dangerous, but this one, he seemed different. He did not carry a weapon, he did not appear hostile. He was exploring, yes, but not in the way of a hunter. Liara remembered her mother's strict command. "If you see one, play dead, let them think you are nothing. Do not give them a chance to take you." Her heart ached at the thought, but she knew she had no choice. Slowly, she laid herself flat on the ground, covering herself with leaves and dirt. Her body went rigid, her breathing slowed even further. She forced herself to appear lifeless. Ethan the human walked slowly through the forest, stepping carefully around the plants. He bent down, looking at a patch of moss and then at the area where Liara lay. He frowned slightly, as if sensing something was unusual. He crouched closer, examining the ground. His eyes scanned every inch of the forest floor, but he did not see her. Liara felt her pulse hammering in her ears. She could hear every small sound, the distant drip of water, the rustle of small creatures, the wind brushing through the leaves. Ethan straightened and muttered something under his breath, though Liara could not understand the words. He placed a small device into the moss, which emitted a soft light and a quiet hum. The device scanned the area and then beeped softly, indicating it had collected some data. He stood up, looked around once more, and then moved on. Liara waited, frozen, until the human's shadow passed over her. Only then did she allow herself to breathe normally. She watched him from her hiding spot for hours as he set up a small camp near a clear stream. He did not sleep in a traditional way. Instead, he sat by his equipment, studying the forest and occasionally writing in a small notebook. Liara felt a strange mix of fear and fascination. Humans were clever, yes, but they also had a strange sense of care. Ethan did not harm the plants. He did not chase the small animals that scurried past. He seemed to respect life. Night came quickly in the alien forest, and the trees glowed faintly under the twin moons. Liara's silver-blue skin reflected the soft light as she moved quietly, still hidden. She had never seen a human so closely before. She knew that if her mother discovered she had been observing him, there would be punishment. But Liara could not turn away. She wanted to understand him, to see why he was here, and perhaps to learn if he was truly dangerous. The next day, Liara followed Ethan at a distance. He moved carefully, taking measurements of plants and rocks, sketching symbols in his notebook. He seemed methodical, precise, and intelligent. Liara realized that humans were not just strong. They were clever, resourceful, and observant. They could survive in strange places because of their mind, not just their physical abilities. This was different from what her mother had always warned her. Suddenly, a noise shattered the quiet forest. A small, four-legged predator with sharp claws and glowing eyes emerged from the underbrush. It snarled and advanced toward Ethan. Liara froze, her instincts screaming. She knew humans were clever, yes, but they were not as fast or strong as her people. If the predator attacked, it could be deadly. Ethan's reaction was immediate. He did not panic. He pulled a small device from his belt and activated it. A bright light shot out and a low hum vibrated through the air. The predator hesitated, then retreated slightly, confused by the human's clever tool. Liara's eyes widened in surprise. This human was not helpless. He was brave and intelligent, using his knowledge to survive, not weapons or brute force. Liara's fear began to mix with admiration. She remembered her mother's warnings, but could not help feeling that this human might not be the enemy she had imagined. Still, she stayed hidden. Her mother's orders were clear: survive first. The predator eventually ran off, spooked by the light and sound. Ethan stood quietly, breathing deeply, checking that it had left. He did not celebrate or boast. He simply continued his exploration, calm and collected. For the next few hours, Liara watched him, learning from his movements. She noticed how he listened to the forest, how he observed patterns in the plants and animals. He was patient, thoughtful, and careful. Liara realized that humans were different from what she had been told. They were not merely dangerous outsiders. They were capable of intelligence, kindness, and creativity. That night, Liara returned to her hiding spot near the stream. Ethan had made a small fire, not to cook, but to keep warm. She saw him take out a small notebook and write, then look at the stars above. She wondered what he was thinking. Was he lonely? Was he scared? She did not know, but she felt a strange connection to him, a curiosity that could not be ignored. Liara knew she had to be careful. She could not reveal herself yet, not until she understood him better. But she also knew that her life might change because of this encounter. Humans were not just stories or warnings anymore. They were real, clever, and capable of surprising actions. Her mother had always told her to fear them, but Liara felt something different. A sense of possibility, a hint that humans could be more than just a threat. As she lay there, hidden and silent, Liara made a decision. She would continue to watch, to learn, and to understand. She would follow her mother's orders carefully, playing dead when necessary, but she would also open her mind to the idea that not all humans were enemies. One day, perhaps, she would meet him, not as prey, not as a threat, but as a fellow being in a vast, complex universe. The night passed, quiet except for the soft sounds of the alien forest. Liara's eyes never left Ethan's camp. She wondered what tomorrow would bring. The forest was full of surprises, and humans were even more surprising. She felt a flicker of excitement, a spark that told her her life was about to change. And somewhere in the shadows, the young human glanced up at the stars, unaware that he had an invisible guardian watching over him, someone who might one day become a bridge between two very different worlds. The morning light broke through the tall alien trees in thin beams, painting the forest floor in pale silver and blue. Liara woke before dawn, her senses alert. She had barely slept, thinking of the human she had been watching for days. Ethan had moved carefully through the forest even before sunrise, setting up small devices near plants and rocks. Liara remained hidden, crouching behind a patch of luminous bushes, her silver-blue skin blending with the glow. Today, she noticed something different. Ethan was moving with greater purpose, his eyes scanning the horizon and the forest floor simultaneously. He seemed aware that someone or something was observing him, though he did not seem afraid. Liara's heart raced. She wondered if he had noticed her invisible presence. The thought made her both nervous and excited. Liara's curiosity was stronger than her fear. She decided to follow him, carefully keeping distance and hiding behind trees, bushes, and glowing rocks. She could see his every move, how he adjusted his tools, how he measured the sunlight filtering through the forest canopy, and how he interacted with the strange creatures around him. One small, insect-like animal crawled near him, and Ethan held out a hand. It hesitated, then crawled onto his palm. Liara gasped quietly, amazed at his patience and gentleness. As the morning stretched into afternoon, dark clouds began gathering over the forest. The wind picked up, rustling the silver leaves and carrying the faint scent of rain. Liara knew a storm was coming. The forest had changed before during storms, becoming dangerous and unpredictable. She remembered her mother's words, "In danger, hide and survive." Outsiders cannot be trusted. But as she watched Ethan work, she felt a growing desire to help him. He seemed unaware of the storm's approaching intensity. The first drops of rain fell, soft at first, then harder, pounding the glowing leaves and turning the soil into mud. The forest seemed alive with movement. Birds and small creatures scurried for cover. Liara's instincts told her to stay safe, to hide, to obey her mother's rules. But then she saw it, a large shadow moving through the trees, a predator unlike any she had seen before. Its eyes glowed red, and its claws dug into the soil as it stalked through the undergrowth. Liara froze. The predator was heading straight for Ethan. Her heart pounded. Humans were clever, yes, but they were not as fast or strong as her people. If the predator attacked, it could be deadly. She knew she could not just watch. Her mind raced. She could create a distraction, lure the predator away, or warn Ethan in some way. But her mother's voice rang in her head. Do not interfere. Survive. Do not trust humans. The predator lunged toward Ethan. He reacted quickly, pulling out a device from his belt. A bright light shot forward and a low hum vibrated through the air. The creature stopped, startled by the strange technology. It growled but did not retreat. Liara's eyes widened. He was clever, brave, and resourceful. He was using his mind to survive, just as she had suspected. Liara made her decision. She could not simply follow her mother's orders this time. She had to act. Using her knowledge of the forest, she led the predator on a chase, drawing it away from Ethan. She darted between trees, making noise to attract its attention. The predator followed her, its glowing eyes fixed on her movements. Liara ran with all her strength, using vines and rocks to slow it down and redirect it away from the human. Ethan, unaware of her actions, continued working calmly, keeping the predator distracted with his device. Liara's heart pounded, but she felt exhilaration. Humans were clever, yes, but they were also brave and quick-thinking. Watching him act gave her hope and a sense of respect for his kind. Eventually, Liara led the predator into a narrow canyon where it became trapped by the falling rocks and mud. The creature roared in frustration, thrashing against the walls, but it could not escape. Liara let out a quiet sigh of relief, her muscles aching from the effort. She had saved the human without revealing herself. She felt pride, but also curiosity. What kind of creature was this human? Why did he act with such calm and intelligence? After the storm passed, Ethan emerged from the trees, checking the area. He did not see Liara, but he seemed to sense that something had helped him. He studied the tracks, looked around, and muttered to himself in a language she could not understand. Liara watched from above, perched on a glowing branch, her eyes wide with admiration. He was not just clever, he was observant and patient. He could survive alone in this alien forest, using his mind and skills. Liara decided to continue helping him in small ways. She moved quietly behind him, clearing paths of fallen branches, leaving fresh water near his camp and marking safe trails. Ethan noticed some of these subtle signs. At first, he seemed puzzled, then smiled faintly, realizing someone or something was aiding him. Liara hid, watching his reaction. His appreciation, even without knowing her presence, warmed her heart. Over the next few days, their silent interaction became routine. Liara observed Ethan's habits, his methods, his careful respect for the forest. She learned from him as much as he learned from her. He recorded plants and creatures, studied the soil, and navigated the terrain with precision. Liara realized that humans were not just physically capable, they were thinkers, learners, and problem solvers. One evening, as the sun set behind the alien mountains, Ethan paused near a stream. He knelt down, filling a small container with water, and looked at the sky. Liara crouched in the shadows, her eyes fixed on him. She wondered what he was thinking. Was he lonely? Was he worried about his journey? She could not understand his words, but she could feel the sincerity in his actions. He respected life, even in a forest full of unknown dangers. Liara's respect for him grew. She realized that not all humans were dangerous, despite her mother's warnings. Some were clever, brave, and kind. But she also knew she could not reveal herself yet. Her mother's rules were strict, and the villagers would not hesitate to capture him if they knew he existed. Liara felt a conflict inside her, loyalty to her mother versus curiosity and admiration for this human. The following day, a new challenge arrived. The forest floor had become slick with mud from the storm. A narrow cliff path had partially collapsed, making it dangerous for anyone to cross. Ethan approached cautiously, examining the terrain. Liara watched him, analyzing how he calculated the safest path. She realized that he relied not only on his technology, but also on his intuition and observation. He was learning the forest quickly, adapting to its dangers. Liara knew she could help him cross safely without being seen. She moved ahead quietly, using her knowledge of the rocks and branches to create small markers, subtle enough that only someone observant would notice. She repositioned loose stones to make the path safer and cleared obstacles that could cause him to slip. When Ethan finally crossed, he noticed the markers and smiled faintly, as if acknowledging a clever helper. Liara hid in the shadows, feeling a thrill of excitement. She had saved him again, subtly, without revealing herself. As days passed, their silent bond grew stronger. Liara continued to watch and guide him. Ethan's cleverness and patience impressed her daily. He learned from the forest, respected its creatures, and navigated dangers with calm determination. Liara realized that humans, despite being physically weaker than her species, had strengths that were equally important: intelligence, courage, and adaptability. One night, as the twin moons rose high in the sky, Liara sat on a glowing branch above Ethan's camp. She observed him carefully as he worked with his devices, writing in his notebook and studying the stars. She felt a strange connection to him, something she could not explain. Her mother's warnings echoed in her mind, but a new thought emerged. Perhaps not all humans were enemies. Some could be allies, or at least beings worthy of trust. The next morning, Liara noticed a small movement near Ethan's camp. A predator, smaller than the one from before, stalking nearby. Ethan seemed unaware of it. Liara's instincts screamed at her to hide, to do nothing, to obey her mother. But she could not. Using her agility and knowledge of the forest, she created a diversion, drawing the creature away. Ethan looked around, puzzled, and muttered something. He seemed to sense the subtle help, though he did not see her. Liara felt pride in her actions. She had saved him again, not with strength, but with intelligence and knowledge. She realized that humans' cleverness complemented her own abilities. Together, even unknowingly, they were a force capable of overcoming challenges. As the day ended, Liara sat quietly in the shadows, watching Ethan. She knew her life was changing. She had begun to question the strict warnings of her mother. Humans were not all threats. Some were intelligent, brave, and respectful. Some could inspire trust. And perhaps one day she would meet him, not as a fearful observer, but as a friend and ally. The forest was quiet now, the danger passed for the moment. Liara's silver-blue skin reflected the soft light of the twin moons as she moved to a new hiding place. Her heart was full of anticipation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and she knew she would be ready. Humans were clever, yes, but together, even unknowingly, she could help shape a story of survival, trust, and growth that neither species had yet imagined. And in the distance, Ethan worked calmly, unaware of the invisible guardian who was watching over him, learning from him, and beginning to trust him in return. The morning light spilled through the alien trees, glinting off Liara's silver-blue skin. She crouched behind a glowing bush, her heart pounding. For days, she had observed Ethan, learning his habits and helping him in small ways without ever being seen. But today felt different. Something inside her told her that she could take a small step forward. She wanted to see how he would react if he knew she existed, but she also feared the consequences. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind. Never trust humans. Survival comes first. Do not let them see you. Liara moved slowly, carefully, staying low to the ground. She left her drone behind this time, relying only on her agility and her knowledge of the forest. Ethan was near a stream, examining the water with a small device. Liara's heart ached with curiosity and nervousness. Could she trust him? Would he be angry or frightened if he saw her? She decided to take a small risk. She stepped onto a glowing root, careful not to make a sound. Ethan looked up instinctively but did not seem alarmed. Instead, he tilted his head, as if studying the forest and everything within it. Liara froze. This was her chance. Slowly, she revealed herself, stepping from behind the bush. She crouched low, showing no aggression, hands relaxed. Ethan blinked in surprise, but instead of stepping back or reaching for a weapon, he smiled faintly. There was kindness in his eyes, curiosity rather than fear. Liara's heart raced. She stayed still, unsure if she should speak or move. Finally, she tried a simple gesture, pointing to herself and then at him, as if asking, "Who are you?" Ethan nodded slowly, understanding. He responded with a soft voice, speaking words she could not comprehend. but the tone was gentle, calm, and friendly. Liara felt relief. He did not attack. He did not threaten her. Instead, he sat down on a nearby rock, keeping his hands visible, showing he meant no harm. For hours, Liara and Ethan communicated in gestures and expressions. She pointed to plants, indicating her understanding of them. He drew symbols in the dirt and showed her tools and devices. Slowly, a silent bond formed between them. Liara realized that humans could be trusted, at least this human. She felt a strange warmth, a connection that went beyond fear or caution. Meanwhile, her mother's voice echoed in her mind, sharper now. "Do not let them see you. Do not trust them. If your village sees him, we must act." Liara ignored it as best she could, focusing on the moment. She had learned that humans like her could survive by using intelligence, patience, and careful observation. And this human had proven himself resourceful, brave, and respectful. The next day, news reached her village that a human had been spotted near the forest. Her mother grew anxious and sent scouts to find him. Liara's heart sank. She knew she had to protect Ethan without revealing herself completely. She also knew the scouts were skilled and dangerous, trained to capture any outsider. She felt a rush of fear, but also determination. She had come too far to let him be taken. Liara began devising a plan. She knew the forest better than anyone else. She could use hidden paths, dense undergrowth, and natural obstacles to mislead the scouts. But she also needed Ethan to understand enough to follow her guidance. Using gestures, subtle markers, and pointing to safe routes, she led him through the forest. Ethan caught on quickly, following her without question, trusting her instinctively. The scouts moved swiftly, their movements precise, but they were not as familiar with the forest as Liara. Every step they took brought them closer to the human, but Liara anticipated their moves. She shifted branches, used shadows to hide paths, and even left false trails to mislead the trackers. Ethan moved silently beside her, relying on both her guidance and his own observation skills. Together, they were a silent, unstoppable team. During one tense moment, the scouts came dangerously close. Liara froze behind a cluster of glowing mushrooms, her silver-blue skin blending perfectly with the surroundings. Ethan crouched beside her, unaware of the exact danger but trusting her instincts. The scouts passed, confused by the false trails, and moved on. Liara exhaled quietly, relief washing over her. She realized that humans were not only clever but capable of trust and cooperation, even across species. The forest was quiet again, but danger lingered. Liara knew the scouts would not give up easily. She decided it was time to move Ethan to a safer location, a hidden cave she had discovered long ago, far from the main paths. She led him there cautiously, marking subtle signs along the way to ensure they could navigate safely. The journey was tense, every step requiring precision, every sound threatening to reveal them. By nightfall, they reached the cave. Liara showed Ethan how to enter without leaving traces. He nodded, understanding her gestures. For the first time, they shared a small moment of relief. Ethan unpacked some supplies, preparing a safe area. Liara watched from the shadows, unsure whether to reveal herself further. She had helped him survive and evade capture, and the bond between them had grown stronger. Over the next few days, Liara continued guiding Ethan. They communicated more easily now, using simple symbols and gestures. Ethan began to trust her completely, moving with confidence through the forest with her silent guidance. Liara felt a sense of pride. She had followed her instincts, used her intelligence, and protected someone she had come to respect deeply. One afternoon, as they rested near a crystal-clear stream, Ethan began to mimic some of her gestures. He pointed to himself, then to her, then to the forest, as if asking about her world. Liara hesitated but then responded, showing small symbols representing plants, trees, and rivers. Ethan's eyes lit up, and he began drawing in the dirt, creating symbols she could understand. Slowly, they were building a language, a bridge between their species. Liara felt exhilaration. She had never thought she could communicate with a human in this way. Her mother's warnings seemed distant now, overshadowed by the excitement of discovery and connection. She realized that humans, while outsiders, could be allies, friends, even companions in survival. Their cleverness complemented her own abilities, creating a partnership neither species had imagined. However, danger was never far. The scouts were still searching, and Liara knew they would eventually find the cave if they were not careful. She devised small traps and diversions around the forest, using fallen branches, glowing plants, and subtle noises to mislead any pursuers. Ethan helped instinctively, following her guidance and learning quickly. Together, they moved like shadows, blending with the forest, outsmarting those who sought to capture him. During one tense evening, a scout appeared near the cave entrance. Liara froze, motionless, while Ethan observed. The scout moved cautiously, sensing something but not seeing clearly. Liara signaled silently to Ethan, pointing to a hidden path. He followed her directions, slipping past the scout unnoticed. The scout left, frustrated, unaware of the clever guidance that had saved Ethan once again. Liara's heart pounded with relief and pride. She realized that humans' intelligence and trust, combined with her own knowledge, made them capable of overcoming incredible challenges. Days passed, and the bond between Liara and Ethan deepened. They shared small moments of learning and understanding, from observing alien creatures to exploring hidden paths in the forest. Liara discovered that humans were not only clever and brave, but also patient and kind. Ethan never rushed her, never demanded explanations, and always respected the forest and its creatures. Liara realized that her mother's warnings had been based on fear, not knowledge. Humans could be allies if approached with caution and intelligence. One evening, under the twin moons, Liara finally allowed herself to step closer to Ethan. She showed him a small collection of rare glowing plants, pointing out their features and uses. Ethan observed carefully, nodding and sketching in his notebook. He smiled at her, a gesture of appreciation and respect. Liara felt a warmth she had never experienced before. She realized that trust could grow even between species, and that courage was not just about strength, but about understanding and cooperation. The next morning, Liara and Ethan prepared to move deeper into the forest, seeking safer territory. She had learned to anticipate dangers, guide him through safe paths, and communicate without words. Ethan had learned to trust her instincts, to observe closely, and to rely on both his intelligence and her guidance. Together, they were a team, capable of navigating challenges that neither could face alone. Liara thought of her mother often. She knew that when the villagers discovered the human, there would be questions, perhaps anger. But she also knew that her actions had saved him, and that humans were worth understanding. She had seen courage, intelligence, and respect in Ethan, qualities that went beyond fear and prejudice. As they moved through the forest, Liara felt a sense of purpose and excitement. The danger of the scouts, the challenges of the wild forest, and the mysteries of this human traveler all combined into an adventure, unlike anything she had imagined. She realized that humans could inspire courage, ingenuity, and growth, even in someone raised with fear and caution. That night they camped near a waterfall, its waters glowing faintly under the twin moons. Liara stayed hidden at first, watching Ethan work with his tools, writing in his notebook, and observing the stars. She felt a strange sense of partnership, a connection built on trust and intelligence. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready. Humans were clever, resourceful, and brave, and together she and Ethan could face whatever the forest or the scouts threw at them. As she finally rested, Liara reflected on the journey so far. She had learned to trust, to act bravely, and to think beyond fear. She had seen the strength of a human mind, the courage of someone who respected life, and the power of silent cooperation. And she knew that the story was only beginning. The forest was vast, the dangers were real, and the bond between them was growing stronger every day. Somewhere in the shadows, Ethan looked up at the glowing sky, unaware that his invisible guardian was learning to trust him completely. And Liara, hidden among the silver-blue leaves, felt a spark of hope and excitement for what the future might hold. A future where humans and her people could understand each other, cooperate, and face challenges together. The sun rose slowly over the alien forest, casting pale silver light across the glowing trees. Liara stood silently on a high branch, watching Ethan carefully as he packed his equipment. The days of observing and guiding him had built a silent bond, but the danger was far from over. Her mother and the villagers had learned that a human was in the forest. Scouts had reported sightings, and Liara knew that soon they would arrive near Ethan's hidden camp. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear and determination. She had protected him so far using her knowledge and cleverness, but now the stakes were higher. If the villagers found him, they would capture him, and he might be taken far from the forest or worse. Liara knew she could not allow that. She had to act, not only to protect Ethan but to prove that humans could be trusted. Ethan moved carefully through the camp, checking each device and gathering tools. He paused near a cluster of glowing plants, studying their patterns. Liara crouched low, observing him, thinking of a plan. She knew the villagers would approach from the main forest path. There was only one way to mislead them completely. They had to create diversions, set traps, and move silently to a new, safer location. Liara signaled to Ethan, pointing toward a hidden path that led deeper into the forest. Ethan understood immediately. He began moving cautiously, using his devices to detect disturbances in the soil and small movements. Liara led the way, marking subtle signs and rearranging leaves and branches to hide their trail. The villagers were clever, but they were not as familiar with the forest as she was. Every twist and turn favored Liara's knowledge of the land. As they moved, Liara felt a pang of worry. Her mother had always said that humans could not be trusted. Yet this human, Ethan, had proven himself brave, intelligent, and kind. He had respected the forest, never harmed its creatures, and used his cleverness to survive. Liara realized that humans could inspire trust, courage, and even hope if approached carefully. Suddenly, a scout appeared ahead, stepping carefully along the path. Liara froze instinctively, pressing her body against a moss-covered rock. She gestured silently to Ethan, who understood immediately. He crouched low, adjusting a device that emitted a soft, bright light to mislead anyone following them. The scout paused, squinting, then turned and walked in the opposite direction, confused. Liara exhaled quietly, relief flooding through her. They continued through the forest, deeper and more hidden than before. Liara led Ethan to a cavern she had discovered long ago, a place few in the village knew existed. The entrance was covered with dense foliage and glowing vines, almost invisible to anyone passing by. Inside, the cave was spacious, with natural walls that reflected the soft light from the bioluminescent plants. It was safe, hidden, and perfect for them to regroup. As they settled inside, Ethan unpacked his supplies. He looked at Liara and smiled, a small gesture of trust and respect. Liara hesitated for a moment, then allowed herself to step closer. She showed him a cluster of glowing flowers, pointing to their features and potential uses. Ethan observed carefully, sketching in his notebook and nodding. They were learning from each other, building a bridge between their worlds, but peace was short-lived. The sounds of movement echoed outside the cave. Scouts had discovered signs of their presence and were approaching. Liara's heart raced. She could hear her mother's voice in her mind. Do not let them escape. Capture the human. Follow the rules. Liara knew she had to act, not only to protect Ethan, but to show her mother and the villagers that humans were not enemies. She whispered silently, gesturing to Ethan to follow her plan. Using their combined skills, they set traps and created diversions. Ethan activated small devices that emitted light and sound in different directions. Liara used her knowledge of the terrain to hide and redirect the scouts. One by one, the villagers were confused, misled by the traps and the clever signals. The final scout approached the cave entrance. Liara held her breath, remaining hidden. Ethan, understanding her plan, activated a small signal device, causing a flash and a soft noise that drew the scout away. The path behind them became safe. Liara exhaled, proud and relieved. Together, they had outsmarted the villagers using courage, intelligence, and cooperation. As the night settled over the forest, Liara and Ethan sat quietly inside the cave. Liara reflected on the journey so far. She had followed her instincts, used her intelligence, and risked her safety to protect him. She realized that humans were capable of more than fear and conflict. They could inspire trust, cooperation, and hope. Ethan had shown her bravery, patience, and respect, qualities that transcended species. The next morning, Liara knew it was time for a decisive moment. She could no longer stay hidden indefinitely. Her mother and the villagers would continue searching, and the human could not remain trapped in the forest forever. She had to confront the possibility of revealing Ethan to her mother to show that he was not a threat. It was risky, but necessary. Liara led Ethan to a small clearing, one that overlooked the village from a distance. She signaled him to stay back, then took a deep breath and called softly toward her village. Her mother appeared along with a few trusted villagers, eyes narrowed and cautious. They saw the human and gasped in surprise. Liara stepped forward, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly under the twin moons, and gestured to Ethan. Her mother's voice was sharp and demanding. Why is he here? What have you done, Liara? Liara stayed calm. She pointed to Ethan and then to herself, indicating the days they had spent together, the dangers they had overcome, and the cooperation that had occurred. She mimed the predator, the forest, and the traps, showing that the human had survived because of intelligence, bravery, and mutual respect. Her mother's eyes narrowed, skeptical. Liara could feel the tension. But she continued, showing carefully how Ethan had never harmed the forest, never taken anything without need, and had acted with patience and care. She gestured to the hidden paths, the traps they had set to mislead the scouts, and the safe movement through the forest. Slowly, her mother's expression softened. Ethan stepped forward cautiously, keeping his hands visible and showing gestures of peace. He pointed to the forest, the creatures, and then to himself, demonstrating that he respected life and intended no harm. Liara watched as her mother studied him, her mind clearly working through what she saw. The villagers murmured among themselves, surprised at the human's calmness, intelligence, and respect. Finally, her mother spoke. "You have learned well, Liara. You have survived and you have shown wisdom beyond your years. Perhaps this human is not a threat." Liara felt a wave of relief. She had risked everything, but she had proven that humans could be trusted. Ethan's presence was no longer a danger, but a chance for understanding, for alliance, and for growth between species. The villagers lowered their weapons, curiosity replacing suspicion. Liara guided Ethan forward, showing them how he had helped and survived. The human's intelligence, courage, and patience impressed the villagers. Slowly, they began to accept him, seeing that he was not an enemy but a being capable of respect, understanding, and cooperation. Liara and Ethan worked together to demonstrate their discoveries, plants, safe paths, and clever ways to navigate the forest. The villagers watched, fascinated. Liara realized that humans could teach as well as learn, and that cooperation between species could achieve more than fear or conflict ever could. By the end of the day, Ethan prepared to leave the forest. He had achieved his goal of exploration and had survived the dangers of an alien world. Liara felt a mixture of sadness and pride. She had grown stronger, braver, and wiser through her actions. She had learned that humans could inspire courage, intelligence, and hope, even in the most unfamiliar and dangerous places. Ethan turned to Liara and nodded, a gesture of gratitude and respect. Liara returned the gesture, smiling faintly. She watched as he moved toward his craft, prepared to leave the forest and return to his own world. The bond they had formed was unspoken but undeniable, a connection built on trust, intelligence, and mutual respect. Her mother approached Liara afterward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You have proven yourself, and you have proven that not all humans are dangerous. You have shown wisdom and courage, and you have protected both our forest and the human. I am proud of you." Liara felt warmth and pride. She had followed her instincts, trusted her judgment, and demonstrated the power of intelligence and courage. As Ethan's craft lifted into the sky, Liara felt a sense of possibility. The forest was still alive, glowing with the light of twin moons and bioluminescent plants. The journey had been dangerous, thrilling, and enlightening. She had learned that humans were capable of extraordinary courage, intelligence, and respect for life. She realized that the galaxy was full of potential allies, friends, and beings who could inspire growth and understanding. Liara returned to the village, her mind full of thoughts. She knew that her life had changed forever. Humans were no longer stories of fear or danger. They were beings worthy of respect, capable of inspiring courage and ingenuity. She had learned that survival was not just about hiding or obeying rules. It was about understanding, learning, and building connections. The forest was quiet now, but alive with possibilities. Liara gazed at the stars, imagining the future. Perhaps one day, humans and her people could work together, explore the galaxy, and face challenges as allies. She smiled, knowing that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome fear, prejudice, and danger. And somewhere beyond the stars, Ethan looked back at the forest, remembering the invisible guardian who had watched over him, guided him, and trusted him. Their bond, unspoken but strong, had created a story of survival, courage, and hope, a story that would inspire both species for generations to come. Liara had played dead once to survive, but now she had lived boldly, thought bravely, and acted wisely. And in doing so, she had shown that humans, when trusted and respected, could inspire the best in anyone, even a cautious young alien girl raised on fear and warnings. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers and wonders. But Liara knew one thing for certain. Humans were capable of greatness, and together with courage, intelligence, and trust, any challenge could be faced.